Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Burrow and Off the Wall Nerds podcast. I'm your host, and here your host, Greg. You guys get the gist. So we're doing our podcast. This is going to be on a relatively discussed topic, but given a new trailer has dropped for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, we're going to attempt to talk about the greatest trilogies of all time. Now, as you see on your screen, we have quite a few listed: Men in Black, Captain America. Yes, there's a fourth one coming out for Captain America. Yes, there's a fourth one for Men in Black, but we're going to stick to the main trilogy that was released. We know that was just like chef's kiss type stuff. So, again, thank you for joining me. If you guys are liking the content, I really appreciate the support. Leave a like, follow, subscribe. The YouTube channel is doing really, really well. Apparently my podcasts are doing fairly decent as far as like a small-time channel. People are listening to the podcast, at least on YouTube. So there is that. So we're here talking about the greatest trilogies of all time, and basically this came up when I saw the Sonic 3 trailer. If the trailer is any indication of the movie, I know a lot of people say this, I've said it many, many times before in our previous episodes, but this looks to be a really, really fun and really, really good movie. Shadow is definitely one of the most legendary adversaries Sonic ever faces. Definitely one of those frenemy types that has been one of my favorite characters aside from Sonic in the history of Sonic. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Basically, since it's just me, just get started here with looking at some of the previous stuff. So first off, the song you guys heard in the beginning was from my friend Steve. Lechuga Caliente is his DJ name. He made a track for me. He's actually going to continue to make music for me. I didn't have it play in the background. We're just going to have, nothing playing in the background right now, but that was kind of the intro song, so I hope you guys like it. If not, let me know in the comments. We're still going to be tweaking stuff. Now, there's no criteria particularly I'm going to use for, greatest trilogies of all time, but there are going to be some omissions. Godfather's one of them, because Godfather 3 is terrible. As far as greatest sequels of all time goes, Godfather Part 2 is definitely up there, but as far as trilogy of 3 movies, it's not. It's, that third movie can really hurt you. The Fistful of Dollars Clint Eastwood trilogy, no, that's a hard pass. It's Western, it's okay, it's at best. Even for the time it was made, it's definitely not up there in the upper echelon of, how well a Western could have been made. Because while it's a trilogy, you went up against movies like True Grit and Winchester and all that, so I'm definitely not going to consider that. The oldest trilogy on this list is going to be Star Wars. But there are plenty of other trilogies out there. Now, as far as what we consider greatest of all time, definitely not going to list all of them. Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my screen. Sonic is getting a little bit of an honorable mention just because the third one is coming out this year, so I'm holding my breath to hopefully get one. I should have listed Deadpool, as Deadpool 1, 2, and Deadpool Wolverine are on here, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start with Evil Dead. Evil Dead was a very, very fun trilogy. I love Bruce Campbell. I loved Ash. Loved him as the role of Ash. They are very cheeky, very, not parody. They are horror movies. Don't get this wrong. They are horror movies, but with some, how do I put it, campiness thrown in. In movies, Ash chops off his own hand. The demons are very much like, how to put this, like New York-ish in the way they cuss you out and want to kill you. It's not saying New Yorkers want to kill you, but just the way they come off is very much aggressive. Like, not demon, but very much a human in demon form, just like, I'm going to kick your ass type thing. But the Evil Dead trilogy is really, really a lot of fun. Army of Darkness is by far my favorite, with this boomstick intro. But Evil Dead for me really does rank up there. Now, that Evil Dead is a personal entry because you really can't argue with the rest of these, I'll be honest. I mean, you can, but the rest of these on my screen do really hold up against the test of time. So Evil Dead is really a personal entry for me. Again, I love Bruce Campbell. Sam Raimi is great as the director and all that. And, he did the Spider-Man trilogy. Spider-Man isn't on here, but it will, it gets honorable mention because Sam Raimi did direct the Spider-Man trilogy. So we went from Evil Dead, horror, campy, to Spider-Man. Slightly campy, but very much some of the greatest superhero movies of all time. So I really appreciate that, as a fan. But we're going to go ahead and talk about Sonic real quick. Sonic came out the gate swinging. Now, it came out swinging in general because the first trailer let's just say the internet won. The first trailer we got had Abomination, that was Sonic, and the fans went in uproar. They went back, redesigned Sonic in the appropriate manner, and fixed it, and it did really, really well. Sonic 1 was amazing. It was one of those origin stories done really, really well, and being told from the perspective of Sonic was really well done. So, Sonic 2 was just as good. We finally got the Chaos Emerald, or the Master Emerald, I should say. I'm sorry, and it was a lot of fun. Knuckles is by far one of the best characters. Again, another frenemy, but definitely more turned ally throughout the annals of Sonic, as far as how much he helped them. Is they have the one fight, and then Knuckles is just really a trusted ally at that point. And don't let it be fooled, Knuckles is extremely fast. He's not obviously as fast as Sonic, but Knuckles can move. So, definitely going with something like that. So Sonic 3, again, is introducing Shadow. Keanu Reeves is voicing him. I'm looking very much to that, and it should be a lot of fun. I probably if you hear noise, my cats are kind of going crazy. But Keanu Reeves' Shadow is a really good choice. At first, it was rumored it was Hayden Christensen. Again, that wouldn't have been a bad choice either, because Hayden is Darth Vader. I mean, either one of those, you couldn't have gone wrong. But I was sad to hear Hayden wasn't Shadow, but when I found out it was Keanu Reeves, my sadness went away. And of course, Jim Carrey is out of retirement to finish up the Sonic trilogy. He did say he was retired, but that he would return if there was a script good enough, and Sonic 3 caught his attention. So we're getting a treat there. We're getting Jim Carrey back as Dr. Robotnik, and he's also playing his father, Gerald Robotnik. So, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're definitely going to be looking forward to that one. Again, Shadow is definitely one of the more interesting villains, because they mentioned in the trailer he has a backstory similar to Sonic's, family, love, but Shadow loses it. Shadow's family, it very much shows that Shadow loses his family, so that's why he just turns into, not evil, but just pissed off. And, yeah, so it's going to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. It comes out on my son's birthday, so we're going to take the kiddo. Sonic is actually his favorite thing, so we're going to definitely look into taking him for his birthday that weekend, and, yeah, going to have a lot of fun. As far as, now, the other trilogies on this list, it's extremely hard to fight off these trilogies with how good they are. I'm not saying it's an honorable mention, but I'm mentioning Deadpool Wolverine as the ending of a perfect trilogy. God's Perfect Idiot Trilogy is what I'm going to call it. And, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Deadpool 1, 2, and Deadpool Wolverine are cinematic perfection. I'm sorry. There are plot holes that get torn apart in the next movie. Like, Ryan Reynolds is born to play Deadpool. That is him. There's no other person that could portray Deadpool. No matter who was the animated stuff, no matter who it was through other stuff, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. That's it. And Deadpool 1, 2, and Wolverine, again, not 3, but Deadpool Wolverine was just an absolute perfect trilogy. We got 1 and 2, rated R, we got our wish, and then we got our second wish, which was when Marvel took over Fox. Are we going to get Deadpool again in Deadpool Wolverine? Or, I'm sorry, are we going to get the rated R in Deadpool Wolverine? And we did. So, I will tip the hat to Disney and Marvel for that, letting us get an R-rated movie, the first R-rated MCU entry. And, Deadpool Wolverine, again, brought back Jackman as Wolverine, and again, cinematic perfection. There's just, I can't not talk about that movie enough. I actually recorded a podcast. I forgot to upload, but you guys will obviously have heard that podcast before you hear this one, so you guys will get to hear my review on that one. But we're going to start with Star Wars, the oldest of the trilogies on this list. I will say this. The OG Star Wars trilogy holds up only because of Empire Strikes Back. Now, I know I dissed Godfather for Godfather Part 3. I dissed Spider-Man because of Spider-Man 3. But Star Wars holds up because Empire Strikes Back isn't just one of the top 3 Star Wars movies of all time. It's considered widely as one of the greatest movies of all time, given the plot twist, given the storyline, given the action. Like, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back could hold its own as a standalone movie. Now, of course, it was meant to be a sequel. This is not lost on Lucas. He made for A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and at the time they weren't numbered. They were just titled like that. So, Star Wars: A New Hope was fun, and Return of the Jedi was okay. Screw the Ewoks. Okay, you know what? Fuck the Ewoks. The Ewoks are terrible. Now, if they were only there for like 5 minutes, okay. But I'm sorry, this is like the Ewoks are just so bad. Like, how does that happen? But the Ewoks are in there and so on. So they get their time to shine. But overall, Return of the Jedi had a good story. They honestly, it's one of those movies you could have probably cut out half the Moon of Endor scene and just taken us strictly to the throne room with Palpatine, Luke, and Vader going at it. So this was definitely it was good though. Don't get me wrong. Return of the Jedi was a lot of fun. We get a lot more lightsaber combat. And yeah, so as a trilogy, yes, it holds up because while there are plot holes, every trilogy has plot holes, or every movie has plot holes. But Star Wars really held it together. That it was a continuation. It wasn't like Evil Dead, where it's like, okay, what happened, or Men in Black, where they kind of call back. There was a linear story being told, and that's why I believe it holds up. But as far as like top trilogies of all time, it's in a top 10 for me. It's not number one. Top 5 really depends on my mood. And yeah, we're looking at Star Wars again, one of the great trilogies of all time. It will hold its own. I could argue with more time and a bigger presence. Like if I had like 4 more people, I would argue the prequel trilogy versus the OG trilogy. So I would take 1, 2, and 3 versus 4, 5, and 6. Strictly because of Hayden Christensen as Anakin/Vader, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. So I would take that fight on and go from there. But if that's something you guys want to see, let me know. The next trilogy I have in mind, again, I feel like I'm ranking these, so don't take this to heart. Again, just a talk. The Captain America trilogy, that one holds up because of 2 and 3. Now, Captain America was a fun origin story, and it was very much a comic book movie. Now, Iron Man was a comic book movie also, but the Iron Man trilogy being left off, I'm remembering that, but I'll talk about that here in a sec. But the Captain America first one was very much a comic book origin story. Like it was very comic-y in terms of what he did or like what was going on. Blowing up a tank that's 3 times the size of the largest tank we've ever built in humankind, or taking on one man versus 50,000 soldiers. I know it wasn't that many, but just it was very comic booky. But we get Winter Soldier, and it turns Captain America from, I'll say campy, but from campy, fun superhero to, okay, this is nitty-gritty spy thriller. It was James Bond-esque in the fact that everything's covert. He was doing covert work. He wasn't out in the open being Captain America. He was very much behind the scenes with Natasha doing spy work, and that's what really, really gripped people. And it started with the Russo brothers. Russo brothers delivered an amazing spy thriller, I would argue. Captain America Winter Soldier was an amazing spy thriller. So, aside from, honestly, Sam Jackson, not Sam Jackson, but just aside from the helicarriers being a thing, you take out the helicarriers and you have a very good spy thriller that had a lot of heart, had a lot of story, and like I said, they did very, very well. And so, like I said, I enjoyed that one. And then moving on to Civil War, that was also a culmination. That was more Avengers 2.5 because it was after Ultron. We had basically up to that point every Avenger introduced minus Guardians of the Galaxy, but Civil War played a heavy, heavy role in the overall arc because Bucky is still running, and Steve's trying to help him, and of course we find out Bucky is the one who killed Tony's parents, and that just goes down the drain. At the time, Tony's like, with the whole Sokovia Accords after Ultron, they basically have to register. It's like, you guys are going to answer to the government. You're not going to take things in your own hands anymore. And he almost convinced Steve to sign. It does fall apart. They were like, oh, we can make amendments. Nope. So Steve and Ant-Man and all of them essentially become outlaws, criminals, and When we get to the fight at the airport, it was just high stakes. Like at that point, you knew that it was just high stakes, that the losers are going to have to answer for the crimes. Of course, Steve has an ulterior motive because he's not trying to fight Tony to win. He's trying to fight Tony to distract him so they can get to northern Russia to figure out what's exactly going on, because Baron Zemo is the one basically causing all this. That he goes and actually kills all the super soldiers that are left, and that's his thing, is to eliminate the Avengers, to make them fight themselves. So I'd argue Zemo is a very, very good villain. He did bring that movie together in terms of who the real villain is, and you actually feel sympathetic for him. Like, so while he's bad, he's not evil. He had a semi-valid reason because of his family dying in that tragedy. So it's like, it makes a lot of sense. Black Panther learns to accept that while Zemo did kill his father, he knows that his dad would not do something similar like that. So it's like he learns to accept it and accept that justice will prevail. And that's when we get an introduction to Black Panther. We get an introduction to Spider-Man in the MCU. So we had a lot of fun stuff happen in that movie. So the Captain America trilogy really, really does hold up. And again, Reigns is one of my favorites, and probably going to do a rewatch of Marvel here soon. And that kind of, like I said earlier about Iron Man trilogy, Iron Man 2 kind of kills it for that one. I thoroughly enjoyed Iron Man 2. I didn't care it didn't make sense. I don't care it had plot holes. It was a popcorn movie. But as far as like linear storytelling and all that stuff, yes, okay, it has its issues. Iron Man 3 is divisive only in the fact of how they handled the Mandarin. Ben Kingsley at first was very menacing, but then he's an actor. His name is Trevor. He's an actor. But so it was a little rough on that one. But Iron Man trilogy, I would say, I'll argue Iron Man trilogy is probably at the moment third among the trilogies right now. There's Captain America, Thor, and then Iron Man. But then you also have the Avengers, but that's a quadrilogy, so yeah. But so that's it for that. That's kind of what we're talking about Captain America. The next one I'm going to jump into is actually Men in Black. I can't say I don't have Men in Black. I can't say enough good things about it. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was very quick. Each movie I think is an hour and a half, if that. So everything happens really fast, but it doesn't happen so fast you miss something. Now, you go back and rewatch it a couple times, you notice little things, like in Men in Black 1, the ship coming into view from the sky. Because most people didn't notice it till it hits the truck. But if you pay attention, you see it coming in out of visual while he's arguing with his wife. Or a lot of people missing, when Tommy Lee Jones is all, when he grew up and Will Smith is all flipping him off. I'm like, okay, I saw that the second time around. Granted, when these came out, I was 10, 11 years old. Didn't understand a lot of the jokes, so being an adult, getting the adult humor is really something. But Men in Black 2 did really, really well. Bringing Kay back, and he's working in a post office. Again, fun stuff. Now these movies, if there are plot holes in movies that are really bad, Men in Black has them, but they roll with it. They have fun with it. And Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith together is just one of the most odd comedy pairings I could ever think of, given the history of buddy cop movies. But then you have Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, Nick Nolte, Eddie Murphy. You have, I'll say, I guess Bucky and Sam, now that they're more relevant. But it's just Tommy Lee Jones, given his roles as someone who's very much into the action but also serious roles. Will Smith was definitely known for his comedy, given Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but then his action stepping into Independence Day, so he was a bankable star. But, he was very much action. It was Independence Day, Men in Black, Bad Boys. Then Tommy Lee Jones comes in and is like, okay, they made this work. So kudos to Tommy Lee Jones. But then he did Men in Black, he did Batman Forever, so he got to stretch his comedic chops a bit. And then Men in Black 3 is my favorite of the trilogy because it has so much heart that I genuinely did shed a couple of tears. Like, it had me tearing up because we get Josh Brolin amazingly playing a younger Kay. and nail Tommy Lee Jones' demeanor and all that. So, of course, Jay goes back in time, finds the younger Kay, they team up, and they try to stop this threat because he's trying to change the timeline to kill Kay and take over the world. But we find out that the whole thing was Jay never knew his dad. So that was really interesting. Jay didn't know his dad, so we're looking at, like, okay, and that was very much a storyline in both movies. Like, in Men in Black 1, he gets his memory wiped, doesn't remember, well, that's the whole point, doesn't remember much. Men in Black 2, it's brought up again about his dad, just his life previously in general. And Kay telling him it's okay, don't badmouth this, don't do that. It's like, basically Kay, his way of telling him things happen for a reason. So we get to what brings the trilogy together in Men in Black 3 was we find out Kay saved him. And now we know why Kay was on him in the first movie, why he wanted him, why he wanted to train him as a replacement, not training a partner and all that. And when you see him hit, Jay's dad die, defending, doing his job, being a protector, and then Kay takes care of the alien, it's like, wow, like, you didn't realize, when you hear him say, this kid in the car go, Dad, and you see Kay's face, just absolutely, all of us just dead, like, oh man. So, he takes care of Jay, he neuralizes him right then and there, and tells him, your dad was a hero. So the first words out of his mouth. So that really, really set the tone for the entire trilogy. Like, it's hard to set a tone at the end of a trilogy. Like, you start off and the movie just ends. The ends in general is a good movie, and then that. But what he did with Jay set it back to where you think back to the moment we first see him. Like, oh wow, like what he did, and. Jay sitting at the end, they're at the diner and saying, thank you. And Kay realizing, he knows, and Kay's like, it's been my pleasure. So that really did set a emotional spark, and that really kind of, not reset, but really made you rethink the entire trilogy at that point, why Kay is the way he is with Jay. And so, yeah, I would argue Men in Black is definitely being up there as trilogies, and it was really, really good. I like I said, I can't say enough good things about it. Plot holes, again, I'm going to keep saying that because all these movies have plot holes, but the plot holes don't hurt the movie and don't hurt the trilogy in this instance. And again, Men in Black gets a 9 out of 10 for me as a trilogy. Men in Black to me being my favorite. So I don't know if we'll ever do a fifth one. There was a fourth one with Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. Didn't do so great. But I actually technically haven't seen it all the way through, so I do need to watch it. But I hope that if they ever do one before Tommy Lee Jones gets really, really too old, they can do one more of Will Smith, but we'll see. The next one I'm going to talk about is bottom right on your screen, Toy Story. Toy Story 3, if Toy Story franchise had ended with 3, I would put it as the second best, if not, I would argue for best trilogy of all time. But Toy Story 4, while I loved it, Toy Story 4 was amazing. It hurt 3's ending. And so we have Toy Story start off, and Toy Story was great. It was the perfect family movie. It still is the perfect family movie. It's made kids, it blew up our imagination as kids. Like, are toys alive when we're not around? You're 5 years old, you leave your toys in your room, you go eat, you come back and the toys are moved. Like, did they move on? Toy Story made you think, my toys are alive. And so it also taught you, I genuinely taught me, because I broke toys as a kid, but after I saw Toy Story, I stopped breaking my toys. I'm like, I didn't want Woody, I didn't have a Woody, but I didn't want one of my action figures doing a 360 and going play nice. That would have scarred me for life the way it did Sid. But Toy Story is a perfect family movie. I loved it. Plenty of heart. And I liked it. I liked that. It had enough emotion to not be a tearjerker, but had enough emotion to sit there and really, really just make you appreciate stuff. Toy Story 2 was definitely Woody's story. Now, I would argue the whole trilogy is Woody's story, but Toy Story 2 was Woody. It was all about Woody. And while Buzz, with Buzz finding Buzz and just that whole island, that was great. But Woody's whole thing about wanting to be accepted or not, because he broke, it was an accident, his arm broke. And he thought Andy would be done with him. Andy wasn't done with him. He just put him up. His mom put him up so he wouldn't get damaged more. But a lot of us as parents know when your kid breaks a toy that you can't fix, you hope that they forgive and forget, or like forget about it and you can throw it away later, which is, I see as a parent now, this is what his mom was doing with Woody. But, Woody finds this thing with Pete and Jesse and Bullseye to be part of a collection, but Woody's thing is, I want to be played with. I'm a toy. I have to be played with. And so, of course, that just goes down really quick as Stinky Pete has this ulterior motive. Once he sees Woody, he's like, no, you're staying here, and it turns evil and sadistic. Like, okay, bro, calm down. But so it was a very much a Woody-centric movie. A lot of fun stuff. Again, the whole Buzz Lightyear thing, the whole taking a tour through the toy store, Barbie, and the piggy. Oh my God, Mr. Potato Head. I forget. Ham. Oh wow, I need to go back and watch it. I fail. But just that whole tour scene was great. And then of course Toy Story having fun with the Star Wars reveal that Zurg is Buzz Lightyear's dad. But that does the whole Zurg thing actually has an interesting twist in the Buzz Lightyear movie. So if you haven't watched the Buzz Lightyear movie, go watch this on Disney Plus. That will really kind of bake your noodle a little bit. But Toy Story 3 was the culmination. Okay, yes, they're all culminations, but was chef's kiss, icing on the cake, perfect football season, Super Bowl winning type movie. And I acknowledge Toy Story 4, but I'm sidestepping. Bear with me, give me my Toy Story 3. I cried. I was bawling like a baby. I was beside myself. I was done. The first 2/3 of the movie was great. Now, it's typical Toy Story. Will they, won't they? What's Lotso, Love and Bear doing? Just you see very quickly they're trapped in there. But again, Andy is older. He gives up his toys, and you're really but he was going to keep them. That's the thing. He just was like most teenagers. Oh, I'm going to put this in the bag and put it away. Genuinely, that's what he was going to do. But his mom, as a parent, was like, oh, trash bag. Oh, take it to the trash. So, yeah, you really feel for it that Andy didn't mean to throw them away. Andy meant to keep them. So, they're in the daycare, they're doing the thing, getting their thing done. They're, like, absolutely getting obliterated. And then, of course, Buzz gets turned into an actual commando and obeying every order he's given. So, it was good. But it was good. They're trying to find their place, so then Woody gets taken to this new kid, Bonnie, and he gets the time with her, but he's like, I have to go back and save my friends, so he gets help and goes back to the daycare and sets them free. And it's like they get to of course like the trash compacting scene and all that. I genuinely thought, okay, are they really going to go dark side and really going to kill these toys? Like, are they really going to make them go through the fire? Now, of course, the aliens saving Mr. Potato Head with the claw. I laughed a little hard at that. I genuinely did. But, so the toys get saved. They get to find their new home. Well, not new home, but they get back to Andy. And this is where it choked me up, was Andy giving away his toys, and one last time playing with them. It's like, damn. Kids who grew up with the movie, you're like, okay, people my age. Now, I'm not trying to diss kids who are watching it, like my son, who was, I think we had him like 3 years old last year. He watched all three of them. He didn't fully understand the impact of Toy Story 3, but he again, a kid that just enjoyed it. But as someone my age, who's like a elder millennial, who watched Toy Story 1, you're like 7 to 10 years old. You watch Toy Story 2 from like 10 to 12 years old, and then Toy Story 3 comes out where we're basically all adults. We're all over 18 years old at this point. And yeah, it made me cry. I was bawling my eyes out when he played with him one last time. When he gives him the Bonnie and Woody says, "So long, partner." I was done, dude. I was in the theater sobbing like a little baby. But that was perfect. The toys find their new home. They know what they have to. They knew what they had to do, and just be there for Bonnie. That's the whole thing. Be there for them. And yeah, I like I said, balled out, but it was perfect. I love the movie. Toy Story will be one of my favorite movies of all time. I will combine all three into one, but it will always be one of my favorites of all time. And yeah, I find very very few arguments against Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 being one of the greatest trilogies of all time. As quadrilogies go, I'd put it up there. There aren't many. As far as quadrilogies go, it's definitely better than the Men in Black quadrilogy because 4 hurts it. Captain America, we don't know yet. Evil Dead, no, isn't a quadrilogy. It just has the 3 movies, a couple reboots, and a show. So there aren't a lot of quadrilogies out there, but Toy Story 4 was also the separation. Woody is gone. Like, the gang separates. Like, Woody goes off with Bo, Buzz and them stay with Bonnie. So that was also very finalist, but they have announced Toy Story 5, so stop playing with my emotions. But so yeah, Toy Story for me, I could go on and on about Toy Story. That's being my jam. But we're going on to, so basically a top 3 here. So we have Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future, Dark Knight. Dark Knight, okay, personally for me, Dark Knight does not suffer because of Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight trilogy is perfect. I know I said that about Toy Story and all that, but the Dark Knight trilogy is perfect. Batman Begins was, again, like Captain America First Avenger, origin comic-y book story origin. But it had that serious, real-world feel to it where it's like, what would happen if this, how would we handle if this something like this was actually real? So Batman Begins dives into that. Aside from that really crazy train going into Wayne Tower, just the way they built that was a little far of a reach for the whole real world feel. But the story is there. So Ra's al Ghul, the League of Shadows, and so on. The Batman Begins starts off really, really well, and it ends strong. It ends very much strongly. We get, he immediately is drawn to Gordon because of what Gordon did for him as a kid, and this is a, how do I put it? I'm trying to think of the word here. I can't. But an origin story that wasn't not necessarily from the comics. This was an original story. So, yes, the parents still die, but all the way he meets Gordon, Alfred, and all this, it was all new, even for the hardcore comic book fans. But we get perfect castings in the movie. We get the perfect James Gordon in Gary Oldman. We get the perfect Alfred and Michael Caine. We get perfect Batman in Christian Bale. And Harvey Dent in Aaron Eckhart. That was chef's kiss. That was a perfect casting also, and I don't want to throw that word around like, oh, it's losing meaning, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. These roles are very, very carefully cast, and if you look at the time frame, Batman Begins was production 2004. They didn't start production on Dark Knight till 2007, so a 3-year gap. They didn't start production on Dark Knight Rises until 4 years later, so they really, really took their time with these movies. And it's Christopher Nolan, who is an amazing, amazing storyteller. From Inception, Interstellar, these movies. So Christopher Nolan really, really knows what he's doing. He's really mastered his craft. But then we get to arguably one of the top 3 superhero movies of all time in The Dark Knight. This movie is outstanding. It was ahead of its time. It still is ahead of its time. It has the perfect antagonist, not villain, even though, yes, I know Joker does some pretty vile things, but not villain. He's an antagonist in Heath Ledger's Joker. Again, another perfect casting. So these things just all come together, and we get one of the greatest movies. I argue one of the greatest movies of all time. I genuinely forgot I was watching a Batman movie. Now, yes, Batman is obviously in it, Joker's in it, but you don't feel like you're watching a comic book movie. Captain America Civil War, you feel like you're watching a comic book movie, but you understand it, you're watching, you're enjoying it. Dark Knight had more suspense. So I'm literally sitting there like, what the hell? Like, what is going on here? So you generally forget you're watching a Batman movie because honestly, they don't call him Batman all the time. They don't say, "Oh, it's Batman. Oh, it's Batman." You get a crane at the beginning, going, "That's not him." Or when the Tumbler rolls in, goes, "That's more like it." He actually doesn't call him Batman. Um, Gordon also, Gordon just goes, people know who he was. He was the Batman. It's the Batman. And so they take it to the aspect of, okay, yes, he's Batman. Yes, we're in the Batman universe, but this is not your this is not your dad's Batman. So we got a really, really amazing movie that deals with the fact that Joker realizes Batman is incorruptible, and it's about what people can do if they're given trust, like if they're able to be trusted to do the right thing, and that rolls into, again, Heath Ledger being one of the best Jokers, if not the best Joker of all time. And we get a very fun but suspenseful movie. And Dark Knight Rises, to me, is not better than Dark Knight, but it's up there. I loved Tom Hardy as Bane. I feel that was an amazing choice. I don't care for the voice. Like, the hate for the voice, I don't care. For me, it was a lot of fun watching him. It was a lot of fun seeing that Hardy's not a big guy in general. My introduction to Tom Hardy was in the movie Star Trek Nemesis. Almost over 20 years ago, that was my introduction to Tom Hardy. So Dark Knight Rises was over 10 years since Star Trek for him. And in Star Trek, he was a very skinny guy, maybe just shy of 6 foot. But in Dark Knight Rises, of course, he has to be huge. So I think he packed on 30 pounds of muscle for the role, and not like hardcore ripped Hugh Jackman muscle. Like he bulked up. Like he had to bulk. So he doesn't have that glorious ripped six pack like you see in a little bit of an outline, but he is huge. And for me, that's intimidating for somebody like Batman, because while Christian Bale isn't small, Batman was ripped. Batman was meant to be more agile and have his suit work for him, so he could hold his own, but he definitely wasn't going to deliver a knockout punch. There's no way he's knocking out Bane. But we get Bane and the League of Shadows return, and the opening sequence of The Dark Knight Rises is up there for me as one of the best opening sequences of all time. That was Tom Cruise level craziness, because they did that stunt. They did that plane stunt, which is absolutely asinine to have done that. I'm sitting like, oh yeah, okay. I'm waiting for my eyes to catch CGI, and I go back and read on it, over 10 years ago, but go back and read, they did that stunt. So I'm like, okay, that was crazy. And so then we get to the overall arc of the movie. Batman comes back after so long, because it's 8 years after Dark Knight, the Dent Act and all that stuff about criminals. He comes back because Bane is there, but Alfred is right. When he tells him, he goes, the police, the city needs our resources. They don't need Batman anymore. They need Bruce Wayne, and so Bruce doesn't see that. So Alfred ends up, Alfred was right. And of course, we get the bombshell. Okay, we knew, but we get the bombshell that Alfred tells Bruce that he knew Rachel wasn't going to wait for him. Rachel was going to marry Harvey, and that she wrote a letter saying she chose Harvey over him. And we get something that I've personally not seen, given how much Batman I've watched. But he leaves. Batman loses his Alfred, and it's like, okay, like, damn. And of course, then we go through the whole sequence. Bruce doesn't have keys to his house and all that. But we get to the final showdown after Bruce is imprisoned, and it's all, why are you afraid? He goes, I'm not afraid, I'm angry. And it really, really does well supporting its own story. And we get another perfect casting in Anne Hathaway as Selena Kyle as a real Catwoman, not dissing Michelle Pfeiffer, but Anne Hathaway, girl, brings it. She brought her A game for this role. And seeing them team up and seeing them get a genuine, I'll say genuine love story. Like, they realize who each other are. I mean, Bruce already knew. He's not stupid. But she realizes who Bruce is, and, they just realize that she just wants to go away with someone, and she finds that guy. And we get one of the better endings of a movie trilogy. We get what Alfred wanted. Alfred said that when he was gone in the first movie, that he took a holiday and he had that fantasy where he would just see Bruce across the way, not say anything, just knew that he made it. And so we see Alfred on his holiday, and the movie ends with Bruce and Selena just enjoying life together. And like Alfred said, he wouldn't say anything to him, and Bruce wouldn't say anything to Alfred wouldn't talk to Bruce, and Bruce wouldn't talk to Alfred. And we get that. That, for me, was a perfect ending. Now, I love the tease of Blake becoming the symbol, the Batman. I'm sorry. And so people are like, oh, his name is Robin, he's going to be Robin. No, he was going to be Batman. It was going to be him taking over as Batman, him being that symbol, because he realizes that as a cop, he is bound by the law to uphold the law. And like he said, those shackles that Gordon was talking about previously, he wanted to get out of those and be able to help people. So, of course, Gordon's not going to hold him back. But at the end of the movie, we see the bat signals fixed. We see Blake go and get into the bat cave. And then, of course, we get the ending of, Bruce and Alfred acknowledge each other, and then Alfred being happy. That was Alfred's happy ending. And so we get that, and Dark Knight Rises ended beautifully. It really, really did. And I don't feel it hurts the trilogy at all. I felt it helped it. Not to the level Dark Knight did, but it didn't hinder it the way Godfather 3 hindered that trilogy. It didn't hinder the way Spider-Man 3 hindered that trilogy. So Dark Knight Rises just helped it and just absolutely took it. So I was really, really happy with it personally. It gets a lot of undeserved hate. I think it'll get that because they didn't address Heath Ledger's Joker, but unfortunately Heath Ledger passed away. So what are you gonna, you had to figure out something there. I feel they handled it well. Dark Knight Rises is long. I will say that it is long, but it was still worth it. Now, speaking of perfect trilogies, we're going into the last two. Back to the Future is the most fun trilogy of the bunch. I'm sorry. I love Star Wars. I love Men in Black. I love Toy Story. But as far as fun, absolute fun, Back to the Future takes the cake. He goes back to the 50s. He comes back. He goes forward to now, to the 2000s, where we're at now. Actually, technically, we're 10 years past that. But to see all this stuff. And then in the third one goes back to the Wild West. It's nothing but fun. Yes, there's a hint of seriousness in there. Don't interact with your previous self. Don't do this. But it was just so much fun. And I'm sorry, one of the best lines of the trilogy is he goes, I figure if you build a time machine, why not do it with some style? Because he built it out of a DeLorean. So next to we're sending you Back to the Future. That's the next best line of the movie. And so Back to the Future 1 would have been perfect on its own. But when he gets back to his time, and he has the truck, he has Jennifer, and his parents are well off now. His parents are doing much, much better. They could have ended it right there with them in the truck, and that would have been it. That would have been perfect. But Zemeckis and Spielberg and them knew what they were doing with this movie. So they had Doc Brown roll up in a futuristic DeLorean now. Yes, it was futuristic before, but he rolls up, he goes, it's about your kids, so he's clearly been in the future. And then we get another great one-liner of the series. You don't have enough road to get to 88. He goes, where we're going, we don't need roads. And then it gets up and flies. What the fuck? Yeah, I saw it 10 years after it came out, but as a kid, I'm like, what the heck, a flying car? So that leads into Back to the Future Part 2, where it's kind of similar story. Marty helps his kids, but then stuff happens where he gets a sports almanac to cheat a little bit. And, of course, old Biff finds it, goes back in time, gives it to his younger self, and time travel works if you just don't think about it too hard. But long story short, Biff gets the book, and they have to go back to stop him from getting the book, make the old guy think he succeeded. And, yeah, so Back to the Future Part 2 was a lot of fun. And then, again, with Back to the Future 1 ending saying, to be continued, Back to the Future 2, when they get, the book back, and then they get, they have to save his family again, because there's two Martys, two Docs. But after they save the family again, Doc gets struck by lightning and is gone. And then, so we're all freaking out, like, where did Doc go? What happened? Carl rolls up, gives Marty a letter saying Doc is in the Old West, and then we get one of the best ones ever. Marty goes back into the future. We see the previous one happen. Marty disappears on the DeLorean, but then comes running around the corner and gets to Doc. And so I'm back from the future. And we get the Great Scott, and then falls over. And then it says to be concluded. It's like, okay, we got to really, really watch this. And Back to the Future 3 was just so much fun. Getting the DeLorean back up and running, doing, for those who are hardcore readers, Jules Verne style. We find out Doc dies, so the mission is Marty's going back in time to stop that. If he hadn't seen The Grave, it obviously would have been a shorter movie. But he can't let Doc die. So they get the DeLorean back up and running. He takes it in Clint Eastwood when he gets back to the Old West. And of course, Doc is a blacksmith, still doing his invention thing. And then, of course, we get Marty having to protect his family's future again. He runs into his ancestors, and it's just so much fun, so much going on. And the great part was the whole train sequence, was pushing the car, and how they had to get to that point, and that Doc falls in love. And it's like, okay, all these variables coming into it. You have to, as a scientist, you have to think with your head. That's what I found great about that. So it was a lot of fun. And the DeLorean being pushed by a train was icing on the cake. And then we find out, the movie progresses more and more. We find out that the whole accident when Marty gets hurt and ruined his music career is he got into a race with needles. But in this version, he doesn't race needles. He just fucks with them, rolls in reverse, turns around, and just watches needles take off like an idiot. And then, sure enough, needles almost hits a Rolls Royce, but it would have been Marty hitting that car, and that's where the whole future gets messed up. So it was really one of those like Men in Black. Everything comes full circle. Unlike and this isn't just unlike Star Wars, unlike Dark Knight and all that. This rolled back full circle as to now the future's not there anymore. Doc shows up with his family, gives Marty that cool picture there in front of the clock tower clock, and just tells him your future. Tells Jennifer your future isn't written yet, and we get a flying time machine train. That was beautiful. It was a great ending. One of the things I love about Back to the Future is that it is timeless. It's about time travel, but it is timeless. Because of where they go and how they go about things, the DeLorean already looked and still looks today futuristic, but you can watch this movie and not feel like you're watching a movie that was made in the 80s because they go back to 1955. When they go back to the future too, they come back into the future. They literally go into the future. So we're seeing all this futuristic stuff, and then in the third one, we're seeing them in the Old West. So at no point does it feel like we're watching an 80s movie about the 80s. We're watching an 80s movie about 3 different time periods. And so I think that's why Back to the Future still holds up. One of the fun things about Back to the Future is that it cannot be remade, rebooted, or a fourth one made without the express written permission, I believe, Zemeckis and a couple of producers. I generally forgot their names, but there is a contract that they actually made legally binding, legally clad, ironclad agreements that Back to the Future cannot be remade, rebooted, or another sequel made without their express written permission. And I thought that was amazing. That you want to talk about trilogies, greatest trilogies, and Back to the Future being one of them, it will never be touched. It literally, legally, it can't be touched. And yeah, people are like, there might be loopholes. There are no loopholes. They cannot do anything with this franchise unless they give up the written permission to say, yeah, go ahead. So Back to the Future is protected for all time. And for a movie about time, it's going to sit there for a while. So the trilogy holds up. It was amazing. I like that. I like those little tidbits that it can't be touched. It can't be remade. So yeah, it's going to stand for all time. And I love it. And yes, I know eventually they will pass away, but I know there's got to be something in the contract saying, like, no, we're not going to do this, so we'll leave it alone. But we're getting into, when I say perfect trilogies, I mean perfect trilogies. Lord of the Rings. There is no perfect. This is the cream of the crop when it comes to trilogies. A lot of people view Star Wars as the best trilogy of all time, with New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. Back to the Future had been up there for a long time too, because when it came out, Dark Knight really, really pushed the envelope, but people do knock Dark Knight Rises. So you're kind of sitting like, okay, what could top this? And sure enough, Lord of the Rings. Now, there are discrepancies from the book. For those of you hardcore Tolkien nerds out there, the Lord of the Rings trilogy had to deviate from the book a little bit, because honestly, if you read the books, Tolkien was technical. Holy shit. But this had to be made for audiences, but Peter Jackson also wasn't lost on the storytelling needed for these movies. That is why there are the extended editions. Every movie is 4 hours long. Fellowship is the only one under 4 hours. I think it's like 3 hours, 50 minutes, but Two Towers is 4 hours and is just at 4 hours. Return of the King is at 4.5 hours. They did not mess around with this. So, while the theater movies were, I think, 3 hours each. Two Towers Fellowship wasn't 3 hours, but Two Towers and Return of the King were, but I mean just over 3 hours. So the extended editions added over an hour to each film. And the only way to watch, when somebody says, we're going to watch Lord of the Rings, the only valid answer is the extended edition. It's the extended edition or nothing. That's the only way to watch those movies, because so much more story is being told in there. And Leigh and I actually went to go see the Return of the King extended edition in theater, I believe, last year or 2 years ago. But we also got to see a version of Return of the King that was beyond the extended edition. The movie was almost 5 hours. Like, I'm not kidding. Leigh and I went down to El Paso. We were there for so long. What happened is that we got to see stuff in this movie that wasn't in the extended edition. As hard as that is to believe, it wasn't in the theatrical, it wasn't in the extended edition. That's crazy. We had to see other stories, and so really Peter Jackson just had to have like really shot each of these movies like 6 hours apiece, like uncut, had to be like 6-7 hours each. Now I love those, but let's just kind of hold there, 4 hours each. But Fellowship was an amazing start. Very innocent, very much innocent feeling for the first hour or so. Sam going, this is the furthest I've ever been, and Frodo being nonchalant about it, just being like, it's okay, Sam, let's keep going. To Gandalf realizing what, Frodo has, having the One Ring, and so Gandalf is, of course, in the panic and dealing with Saruman's treachery, and then we get one of the best characters in this series, in Aragorn, protecting them, known as Strider. But he comes in the story. They finally get to Rivendell. And we get the Fellowship of the Ring. We get Gimli, Legolas, Boromir, Aragorn, Gandalf, Merry, Pippin, Sam, and Frodo. I'm actually surprised I named all of them. But we get them on what is one of the most perfect adventures you're ever going to see, in a single movie, not just a trilogy, in a movie. And we get some of the best cinematography ever in these movies. Like, yeah, there's CGI, but there's CGI in this movie that holds up today, like Jurassic Park holds up today. Well, Lord of the Rings does too, and that's over 20 years old. So we get some of the best CGI, and now we get, near the end of the movie, we get one of the best fight sequences we're going to get. The choreography, the weapons, all the stuff that was made, all that was done to show Aragorn taking on this horde of orcs of at least 100. And so, he takes them on, he resists temptation. And when Frodo tries to give him a ring, because Boromir tried stealing it. So Aragorn resists temptation and tells him, I would have gone with you to the end. So he gets Frodo out of there, and then he takes on the orcs, and then Boromir comes to his senses after Frodo knocks him down, and then Boromir is there defending Merry and Pippin, and we get two of the best sword masters you can, just taking on these orcs, and Boromir gives a last stand for the ages in taking 3 arrows to the chest, in taking on the orcs, and we get one of the best make you cry scenes, saying, admitting he was wrong. He goes, I tried to take it from Frodo, but then Aragorn telling him it's okay, he got away. And Boromir was able to rest at that point, but going, essentially telling Aragorn, you need to be king. He goes, my captain, my king. And, he dies, and he gets, we see Aragorn put on his, I don't want to say bracelets, I don't know the correct word, but puts on the bracelets that Boromir had on for his forearms. Aragorn takes those and wears them as, tribute. So, that's how Fellowship ends, with Frodo and Sam walking off. Now, for me, I saw these movies when they came out in theaters. If you did not read the books, and you saw these in theaters, seeing Frodo and Sam walk off over the mountains towards Mordor, you were pissed, because they did not announce Two Towers yet. Two Towers was not announced formally yet, and this is before the internet. This is before the internet blowing up. So this is 2001. Frodo and Sam were walking off, and you're like, wait, what? I want more. This is like when Star Wars New Hope ended finally, and Star Wars New Hope ended in a very finale-ish way. Like, you were not expecting more. Lord of the Rings, you're seeing Frodo and Sam like, the hell, they didn't destroy the rings. That's the whole point of the movie. So a lot of us were just mad that there wasn't more, because unlike Back to the Future, where it said to be continued, Lord of the Rings did not do that. Dark Knight, 3 different stories. Men in Black, 3 different stories. Toy Story, 3 different stories. So it's like you were expecting more, sure, but you want to talk about cliffhanger endings. That was the cliffhanger ending. So we get Two Towers, and Two Towers is arguably, Two Towers is amazing. We get far more into the story. We get into Rohan. We get more of Gondor. And we get more Sauron's treachery. So, of course, Pippin means Pippin has to touch the goddamn ball. So, that was Return of the King. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit there. But, we get one of the best battle sequences in any movie you'll ever see, the Two Towers, when the 10,000 orcs descend upon Helm's Deep. We get is absolutely crazy, the technology they use to create all that, and they still use it throughout the movies. Again, going to what makes it perfect trilogy is that the battle sequences, the story was also really, really well done. Eowyn doing her thing. Oh wait, no, Eowyn. What is? Oh my God. Yeah, it's Eowyn, right? It's Eowyn. Yeah, Arwen is Aragorn's. Okay, got. Sorry, confused with Eowyn, being very much a heroine. Like, she's not taking shit. She may come off, I don't want to say feeble, but very much come off like a woman. Not to sound rude, but just coming off as somebody who shouldn't be there proves she can be there. She is very much a woman of Rohan. She is very much a woman of her lineage. So, and her and Éomer are a brother and sister, a good pair. Karl Urban brings it, and we get Theoden having to have buried his son. It just adds more depth to his character. And we then get to, again, they have to evacuate to Helm's Deep. Saruman and Grima know this, so they build those bombs. But even with blowing the wall open, that Helm's Deep still didn't fall. They were still able to hold their own. But Gandalf telling him, on the 5th day, look to the east. And we see that Gandalf finds Éomer and the Riders of Rohan, and they, just deliver to the king, and they go down and descend upon the orcs and take them out. It was so great. And then the orcs didn't get away. If you watch the extended editions, they go back, they run into the forest, and get absolutely murdered by the trees. Like, the trees are not fucking around. And they go into Isengard and all that. And it leads into Return of the King, where they finally bring Saruman down, and Saruman is killed, Grima is killed, and they all know that Sauron is very much aware of what's going on. Not that Sauron is aware, but Sauron knows what's happening. He's the devil in details type thing. Like, he's like, come at me. And so they start getting everything ready. Gandalf goes to Gondor to try to warn Boromir's father about the impending danger, and he just doesn't take it. Like, he's pissed off because Boromir's dead, yes. Faramir's alive, he tells Faramir, yes, I wish you had switched places. It's very much a fucked up relationship. But he doesn't care. As the steward of Gondor, he doesn't care. So Gandalf is like, how do we get the help here? And so he sends Pippin to light the beacons of Gondor. And we get we get the best one ever. And just Aragorn, the beacons of Gondor are lit. And then we get Rohan will answer. And we get one of the best sequences ever. Just packing up and getting out there for battle. Aragorn, they build the camp. Aragorn goes and gets this undead army that is bound to their oath because of Isildur with his being king, and because the blade was remade, they are bound by their oath to fulfill the orders of the king of Gondor. So with the sword, that is their proof. So of course Aragorn gets them to come under his command, and the Rohirrim muster up, and we get one of the greatest battle speeches of all time in Return of the King, and shields will be, spears will be splintered, shields will be shattered. It is absolutely, it was Avengers Endgame, Avengers Assemble before it was that. Theoden just riding out there, and their battle cry is just death. And they know they're going to die. It's just like, but we're going to go down and make sure we take all these guys with us. And it was amazing to hear Theoden's speech, getting to see it in theaters twice. Once when it came out, and then a couple years ago with Leia. But just getting that was absolutely crazy. Just to feel that, to feel it again, and it's like it sends, if you're a true fan of cinema, that sends a chill down your spine. So you really, really want to feel that, and so that sends a chill down your spine. And then when we get done with the battle, Theoden is killed, but Eowyn is still alive. She becomes essentially Queen of Gondor. But they have one final battle. They have to march on the Black Gates. And so they march on that. And Aragorn delivers, have him come forth and face me, but then he goes for Frodo. And then takes off and just fights. And that one, and we get for those who didn't pay attention, not this, that, but because you're enjoying the movie, by all means, but Sam becomes the hero. Sam is the hero of the franchise. So, Sam becomes the hero, and that's because he gets Frodo there. Now, of course, Frodo wasn't going to destroy the ring. He does become overtaken by it. Him and Gollum fight over it, and ends up falling into the volcano of Mordor, into the fires of Mordor. But the ring is destroyed, and we get the sequence of them getting out of there, picked up by the eagles, and another amazing, amazing sequence where Aragorn becomes king. He is crowned, walking through, people bowing. He gets Arwen back, and they begin to walk through. And in a scene that really does make you tear up a little bit when you watch it, he comes up to Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. They bow to him, and he goes, "My friends, you bow to no one," and he bows to them. It's like, damn. Like, that hits hard, because 4 halflings set out to save the world. And Merry and Pippin didn't know it when they ran into Sam and Frodo, but those 4, just unselfishly, were like, yeah, sure, we'll save the world. They had no idea what they were doing. They thought they were just going on some grand adventure, just like Bilbo. But they get that emotional "you bow to no one" speech, and then of course we get what looks like the end, but we get to the Shire, and Frodo leaves for the Undying Lands. Sam is left. Sam, Merry, and Pippin get their goodbyes, and then we get to where, just before he leaves, so Frodo goes, there's room for a little bit more, and hands Sam the book. So we get The Hobbit, it literally titled The Hobbit, then we get The Lord of the Rings by Frodo Baggins, and then, there backing by Bilbo, The Lord of the Rings by Frodo, and then he goes, he finally finished it, and he goes, there's room for a little more, and hands it to Sam, and let Sam finish the story. And it was amazing. It was a beautiful ending. It was amazingly well done. And this is, for me, and I kind of went in order of what I liked, but Lord of the Rings is the greatest cinematic trilogy we're ever going to get. Now people are like, there's Avengers. Avengers is 4 right now. There's Avengers, Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame. That could be easily the greatest quadrilogy of all time. up against Toy Story, up against what other some other Captain America will be a quadrilogy. There are other 4-movie franchises out there, but not many because Harry Potter's 8, Star Wars is what 13 at this point. But Lord of the Rings cannot be matched in the sheer art of storytelling, cinematography, action, all the emotion in the movie. And that's just my personal take, but I mean, it's hard to argue that because, again, you have movies that were released sequentially, 2001, 2, and 3. Men in Black took some years, Dark Knight took some years, Back to the Future took some years, Star Wars took, 3-4 years in between each one. So it's like, they were filmed back to back to back, which is something that even today, with today's money and today's technology, is still extremely difficult to do. But Lord of the Rings pulled it off, even with technology they had. The technology now still holds up today, 20-plus years later. But that's my take, guys. If you made it through this part of the podcast, I really, really appreciate the support. I didn't say leave a like, follow, subscribe enough, so leave a like, follow, subscribe. But let me know your takes. If you guys are listening to this podcast, comment what you think. Comment if you think I'm wrong. Comment what your favorite trilogy of all time is. What your favorite movie of a trilogy is like. For me, Return of the King is my favorite Lord of the Rings. Toy Story 3 is my favorite, but Dark Knight in the Dark Knight trilogy, I would argue Back to the Future Part 2 is also one of my favorites. So let me know what you guys think. Your favorite trilogy, your favorite movie in said trilogy, what you think is the best trilogy. So I'd like to hear from you guys. So I appreciate you all tuning in. I appreciate the support. Remember, like, follow, subscribe. Keep watching. Other videos are coming soon. More Pokemon content. I'm going to try to do some Switch content and go from there. But thank you guys. I'll catch you all in the next video. Take it easy.